There was a time when we begged, not with pride, not with strategy, just plain, raw begging, like dogs at the feet of masters who only fed us when it suited their peace conferences or trade treaties. Back then, Earth was bleeding, the atmosphere collapsing, oceans turning sour, cities hollowed by famine and war. We reached out, pleaded, promised. We had nothing left to offer but our desperation. And they came. At first, the Solari brought filters for the air. The Zevans dropped food pods over burned-out fields. The Yakara sent tech that we couldn't understand but used anyway. Limbs for the broken, walls for the cold. They looked at us the way scientists look at dying lab rats. Curious, distant, mildly sympathetic. And just when we started thinking maybe, just maybe, we had a place out there in the stars, they left. No warning, no explanation. Just cut comms and vanished like we were a failed experiment. One day we were part of the Galactic Union Humanitarian Initiative, and the next day, just static. The reason? No one told us. Maybe Earth didn't have enough resources. Maybe our DNA was too unstable. Maybe we were too primitive, too emotional, too human. Or maybe, and this one hurts the most, they never meant to help us long-term. Maybe we were just a charity project, and when the interstellar cameras stopped rolling, the funding dried up. Whatever it was, we were alone again. And this time, angrier than ever. I remember the day it truly sank in. I was stationed at the Bastion, what used to be an orbital platform gifted by the Zevans. Mostly automated, high orbit, supposed to monitor atmospheric decay. I was there for 2 years before they shut off the support drones. No maintenance shipments, no updates. They even locked us out of the main console like we were thieves. 2 weeks later, the oxygen stabilizer failed. 5 of us up there. I watched my best friend suffocate right in front of me, his face purple, clawing at his own suit because the backup system wouldn't respond. His name was Karen. He used to believe the Union saw something special in us. He died with that belief crumbling in his lungs. After that, something shifted in me. It wasn't grief. That came later. It was fury. A thick, quiet kind of fury. The kind that doesn't scream or break things. It just settles in your chest and simmers until your blood's made of it. When I got back to Earth, it was worse. Entire cities collapsed. Supply lines gone. Farms burning. Governments barely holding together. Everyone was waiting for the Union to return, like children staring out the window for a parent that abandoned them. I walked into a council meeting. A ragged group of engineers, soldiers, and tired bureaucrats clinging to hope like a dying fire. They were arguing over which alien race to plead to next. I stood up and said something I didn't plan, didn't rehearse, didn't even think about. "They're not coming," I said. "And we don't need anyone." Silence. Some scoffed. One guy, I think his name was Rutledge, tried to laugh, but it died in his throat. Because deep down they knew, every last one of them. They left us, but we were still here. And from that moment on, something new took root in the ashes. Not just survival, not just rage, a mission. If they didn't want to stand with us, we'd rise without them. The first city to rise wasn't a capital or a megatropolis. It was a scavenger holdout on the edge of what used to be the European Alliance. A frozen crater ring they called Grey Point. Ruins everywhere. Concrete ribs jutting out of the ice like broken teeth. But it had one thing that no other place did. An old Zevan reactor buried under the frost, still humming after all those years. We got it running. Took 14 lives, 2 amputations, and 1 near mutiny, but we got it running. Heat returned first, then lights, then water. The first night the lights came on, I stood on top of a rusted communications tower, staring down at the people gathering below, huddled in rags, frost-bitten, scared out of their minds. And I remember thinking, this is it, not the end, not the begging, not the abandonment. This This raw, freezing fire. This is how humanity gets reborn. I started giving speeches, not because I wanted to lead, but because someone had to say what everyone was choking on. I told them the truth. No fluff, no hope-drenched lies. They didn't think we'd survive without them. Let's prove them right, and make them regret it. That became our motto. We carved it into steel, painted it on walls, we whispered it like a prayer. The council back in New Geneva didn't like it. They said I was stoking division, turning our focus from rebuilding toward revenge. They tried to censure me. I ignored them, let them play politics in their broken towers while the rest of us fought tooth and nail in the mud and ice. Grey Point became a symbol, not just for humans, for us, the ones who never got a seat at the interstellar table, the outcasts, the stubborn, the mad. And they came. Pilots, hackers, engineers, ex-soldiers with burns down their spines, doctors who once trained with the Union and now used those same techniques to save our own without needing permission. We didn't rebuild Earth the way it was. We made it harder, meaner, more honest. We stripped alien tech down to its bones, studied it, rewired it, turned it into something brutal and effective. Our engineers, most of them with no formal training, created machines that could run on trash and scrap metal, engines that roared like beasts and powered drilling towers and sky lifts and war mechs patched together from what the Union left behind. They never thought we'd figure it out. They underestimated how creative humans get when we're pissed off and have nothing left to lose. Then came the signal. 6 months after Grey Point powered up, we intercepted a faint distress beacon. Union code. One of their scout ships. Crippled. Floating near Saturn's rings. Weak power signature. 3 life signs. The council said leave it. But Grey Point didn't answer to them. We salvaged the ship. Boarded it. What we found wasn't an emergency, it was a test. 3 species we'd once called allies, armed uninjured, spying. We dragged them back in chains. No torture, no broadcasted revenge. We weren't savages, but we made sure they watched our children using repurposed Zevon tech to power up water generators, watched human engineers manually recalibrate a reactor core with nothing but rusted tools and sweat, watched our people walk tall through the ruins, not asking for help, not begging, thriving. When we let them go, I sent one of them back with a message carved into a slab of solar steel. 4 words. We don't need anyone. Next day, the stars listened. The Solari reached out, the ones who left us starving, breathless, forgotten. They offered peace talks. I told them, peace is earned, not bought. And we cut the signal. It didn't take long for the rest of the galaxy to start getting nervous. They thought humanity would vanish without them, crumble into ash like a failed species. But what they didn't expect was what we were becoming. Harder, sharper, unforgiving. We weren't limping back to the table. We were building a new one with jagged edges, and everyone else was starting to feel the cut. Grey Point wasn't alone anymore. 7 other cities had come online, each with their own flavor of rebellion. Some were pure survival hubs. Bunkers turned underground empires. Others became test beds for experimental weapons and reverse-engineered tech. One city, Iron Reach, was entirely mobile, mounted on titanic crawler tanks, rolling across the continents reclaiming dead lands like a machine god. No flags, no national pride, just one banner everywhere. Humanity stands alone. The Solari didn't like that. Neither did the Yakara. They began sending observers. Diplomats, they called them, though none of them came without armed escorts. The message was clear. They were afraid. Afraid of what we were building. Afraid of what they abandoned. Afraid that maybe, just maybe, we weren't so weak after all. The diplomats were met with silence. We didn't attack, but we didn't entertain their speeches either. Most of them left within a week, unnerved by how we stared through them, like they were already ghosts. Then came the border incident. A Yakara patrol ship, sleek, silver, arrogant, violated one of our new satellite zones. Orbit sensors picked it up in seconds. The bastards didn't even try to hide it. They wanted to remind us who was in charge of the stars. They expected a warning. What they got was retaliation. We launched a gunship, the Hound's Wrath, built in Greypoint's old reactor yard, armored with repurposed scrap and powered by a patched alien core, crude, ugly, and brutally fast. It didn't open comms, it just fired. The Yakara ship went dark in under 7 seconds. No survivors, no transmission, just static and debris. I expected outrage. I expected a fleet above Earth in retaliation. But they didn't come. Because they were scared. Not of our firepower, not yet, but of our certainty. Our lack of fear. They'd never seen a species willing to make enemies out of everyone at once. We weren't interested in balance anymore. We were interested in justice. And deep down they all knew we were owed something. Every ration we never got, every child that died when the air ran out, every soldier that bled in the cold while they re-evaluated our worth, that debt didn't disappear. It matured. One day I sat in the Greypoint command room, staring out the window at the stars. Stars we used to beg under. Stars we now stared back at like a challenge. A kid named Bram walked in, 17, grew up in the ruins, smart, sharp, angry, like all of us. He had just finished assembling the first entirely human-built drone fighter. No alien parts, all Earthborn metal, code, and blood. He asked me, "Do we tell them when we're ready?" I shook my head. "We don't tell them anything," I said. We let the silence speak. That same night, 2 more Union races tried to reopen diplomatic relations. They offered supply routes, blueprints, access to old stations. I had one response sent back to both, a single video feed. Footage of Earth's sky, now dark and broken, yes, but beneath it, 7 cities of fire and steel rising out of the ruins. Factories glowing, people marching, machines roaring. Our species, bloodied, battered, and still walking forward like something that couldn't be stopped anymore. No narration, no music, just the image. And at the end, carved into the last frame like a scar, "We're done crawling." They finally sent a fleet. Not an invasion force, not officially. That would have meant war, and the Union wasn't ready to admit they'd created a monster. No, what they sent was a peacekeeping patrol. 4 ships, 2 from the Yakara, 1 Solari cruiser, and a drone ship flagged neutral. All armed, all tracking heat signatures. They entered Seoul like they still owned it. They didn't broadcast any warnings, didn't ask for permission, just drifted in slow, quiet, arrogant, like they were checking in on livestock that got a little too loud. They positioned themselves in orbit, above the cradle we had crawled out of, above Earth. This was the test, the line, the moment the whole galaxy would hold its breath to see if humanity would fold or stand. We chose neither. We acted. The moment those ships locked into their orbital hold, we launched our own, not from orbital hangars or polished Union-style bays, but from the spine of Earth itself. Greypoint, Iron Reach, Black Harbor. Each one released a fury of homemade steel and defiance. Crude, overpowered, violent. The sky turned to war in less than a minute. We weren't supposed to be able to fight them. Not yet. Not on their terms. But they forgot something. Union warships were elegant, balanced, precise. Ours, they were built from rage and vengeance. No grace, just force. We didn't care about maneuvering thrusters or shield protocols. We strapped nuclear accelerants to reinforced hulls and pointed them towards the enemy like bullets. The first Yakara ship exploded before it could even activate its primary defense grid. The Solari cruiser got off 3 warning shots, one of which clipped the wing of the Hound's Wrath, before a wave of Greypoint's magnetic slugs punched through its midsection like a sledgehammer through wet paper. No negotiation, no mercy. The drone ship tried to escape. It didn't get far. We disabled its engines and let it drift. A message in itself. We control the battlefield now. The wreckage fell toward Earth's atmosphere in slow arcs of glowing debris. The people below, the same ones who used to look to the stars with hope, watched the fire trails with a new kind of awe. Not fear, pride. This was ours, our fight, our sky, our home. And we weren't asking anyone's permission anymore. The Council of New Geneva tried to call it a mistake. They used words like overreaction and diplomatic failure. They still believed in balance, still clung to the ghost of a galaxy that didn't want us. They didn't understand, or maybe they were just too scared to admit it, that balance was a lie. There was never balance. There was survival. There was obedience. And then there was what we had just done. A meeting was called, the biggest since the fall of the Union Embassy. Every major human city linked in. Commanders, scientists, workers, even kids from the farms and scrap colonies. And I stood in front of them all and said what no one else had the nerve to say out loud. They thought we were deadweight. They fed us scraps. Then they left us to rot. I looked straight into the lens. And now? They orbit our world without consent, and when we respond with fire, we're called aggressors. I let the silence burn. Then I said the line that would brand itself into the bones of our future. We don't owe them peace. We owe them proof. Proof that we survived without them. Proof that we didn't need their pity. Proof that when a species is stripped of everything and still chooses to stand, it becomes something the galaxy can never control again. That day we stopped being a species on life support. We became a civilization of our own. Not a vassal, not a charity case, not a forgotten orphan limping behind the grown-ups of the stars. We were something new, and the stars finally started to fear us. The war didn't start with a declaration. It started with a blockade. They called it containment, said it was for our safety, to prevent further aggression after we escalated tensions. Typical Union language. Polished lies dressed up as policy. They stationed 27 ships along the edge of Sol. Not warships, officially, just patrols, science vessels, surveillance units, all of them armed to the teeth. They thought we'd back down, thought we'd bend at the knees like we always did before, when we still believed in alliances, treaties, diplomacy. But the problem was, we didn't believe in any of that anymore. And more importantly, we remembered. We remembered the convoys that stopped coming during Earth's black winter. The alien hospitals that pulled out of our cities while the viruses burned through our children. The partners that shut down their ports when we needed fuel, medicine, shelter. We remembered every second of abandonment like it was branded into our DNA. So when they built their wall of ships, we didn't panic. We built through it. Right there under their watch, we launched 2 massive structures into orbit. No secrecy, no cloaking, just defiance. The first was a refinery, the Kovac Spire. It floated just above the Pacific, processing asteroid scrap we harvested ourselves. The second was a cannon platform, the God's Eye, made from a Solari transport hull, bolted with railguns and fusion mortars, wired by hands still rough from digging graves. They saw us do it, and they did nothing, because by then even the Union started realizing something dangerous. Humanity wasn't bluffing. The blockade held for a week before we made our first move. We didn't fire a shot. We hacked their comms, broadcasted an open transmission on every Union channel, from the Outer Rim to the Central Colonies. It was a recording. No flag, no anthem, just a voice. Mine. You watched us die. You watched us choke and starve. You watched our skies burn and our oceans boil. You said it was regrettable. You said it was unavoidable. You said it was out of your hands. I paused. Then I said the words the Union would never forget. Now it's out of ours too. We let that message loop for 3 hours straight. Then we went dark. They responded exactly how we expected. Panic disguised as diplomacy. Emergency councils, peace offers, investigations into the unauthorized fleet action by their own forces. They blamed rogue admirals, system failures, miscommunication. They didn't understand. None of it mattered anymore. This wasn't about peace. This was about respect. And respect, in our world, didn't come from sitting at the table. It came from flipping it over and daring them to do something about it. That same week, the Yukara ambassador sent a personal message, not to the council, but to me. He offered Earth reintegration, promised aid, forgiveness, even hinted at shared leadership in a reformed union. He used the phrase mutual growth. I didn't even reply. I forwarded the message to every human channel with the subject line, "They're scared. Good." Then we erased his access. The people loved it, not because I rejected their offer, but because, for once, we were the ones doing the rejecting. Earth's skies became busy again, ships moving, factories humming, reclaimed satellites blinking back online. And through it all, the blockade watched. Silent, unmoving, useless, because the truth was becoming too loud to ignore, even for them. Humanity wasn't looking for a way back in. We were preparing to punch a hole through the stars and build something new on the other side. They finally fired first. It was subtle, cowardly. A routine scan pulse from one of their Solari patrol ships, except this one was aimed directly at the God's Eye, and it was a high-frequency burst strong enough to scramble a weaker reactor. They hoped we'd flinch, maybe even flounder. Maybe we'd call for talks, ask why, beg for clarity. We didn't, we answered. The God's Eye didn't go offline. It came alive. Its core roared up from standby like a thunderclap across low orbit, and before their crew could even issue a retreat command, we locked on and fired the main railgun. One shot, clean. It cut through the Solari ship like a wire through water, neat, precise, final. We let the wreckage drift. No recovery, no ceremony, just a message, again written in fire. This is our orbit now. From there, the illusion cracked. The Union lost control of the story. Every species that had once clapped themselves on the back for saving humanity was now staring down the barrel of the very race they left to die. They didn't know what to do with that. Some started whispering about compromise. Quiet diplomatic feelers went out. Some races said maybe Earth should be left alone, left sovereign. But it was too late. They made us this way. They taught us not to trust. They taught us to survive without comfort, without unity, without mercy. Now they were reaping it. Across human channels, we stopped calling it a blockade. We started calling it the cage. And we decided it was time to break it. We launched Project Iron Vein, a coordinated strike from 3 hidden stations built deep in Earth's crust over the last year. Their weapons weren't meant to destroy. They were designed to blind. Electromagnetic scramblers, chaos pulses, stealth drones with hacking modules, all of it aimed at one thing: turning the Union fleet deaf, dumb, and blind. And it worked. Within minutes, half their ships lost targeting systems. The rest couldn't even tell what direction Earth was rotating in. Their formations fell apart like scattered birds. We didn't attack. We let them drift. Let them taste the chaos. Let them see what it feels like to be vulnerable, exposed, isolated, like we were for decades. The message was no longer subtle. We could destroy them, any time we wanted. But we weren't interested in revenge. We wanted separation, permanence, fear, something they would carry into every corner of the galaxy, something no history book could sanitize. The Council of New Geneva, Those relics who still clung to hope that we could rebuild old alliances tried to call for peace. They begged me to speak at a summit. I sent them a package. Inside it was a piece of hull metal from the Solari ship we'd destroyed. And carved into it, the only thing I had to say, they fired. We finished it. After that, the council dissolved. No more illusions, no more pretending. Earth wasn't a union project. Earth wasn't a protectorate. Earth was an empire in the making, and the galaxy had no idea how to stop it. The blockade didn't fall, it shattered. The day Project Iron Vein went active, everything changed. It wasn't just about tactics or firepower anymore. It was about psychology, and we cracked theirs wide open. Ships began to pull back, not under orders, not in formation, just drifting away one by one. Pilots from the outer systems, those who didn't grow up with the propaganda, who didn't see us as lesser, started questioning everything. And when one of the Yukara gunships abandoned its post and sent us a private message, "We don't want this fight," we let them go. Not out of kindness, out of calculation, because fear spreads faster than any weapon, and we wanted it to spread everywhere. In less than 3 days, 2/3 of the Union's blockade was gone. Retreated, defected, or simply stopped responding. Their command couldn't explain it, couldn't contain it. Because for the first time, Earth didn't look like a rogue world. We looked like a reckoning. The rest of the galaxy? They watched with a silence that spoke louder than any broadcast. Colonies that once mocked us, called us savages, parasites, junk-worlders, now held emergency defense meetings. Borders were reinforced. Academies taught human conflict response tactics, like we were a natural disaster. But we weren't. We were deliberate. Every piece of tech we salvaged, we repurposed. Every weakness they left behind, we studied. And the more we learned, the less we needed. Because the future we were building had no room for alien crumbs or half-measured peace. We wanted independence with teeth, and nothing short of absolute self-reliance would do. Then came the message from the inner systems. It wasn't from a Union diplomat, not even from a military leader. It came from a merchant guild, the Shaksari. They offered us a trade deal. They didn't use the word help. They didn't dare. They simply offered access to raw minerals and outer system data in exchange for protection. United States. Protecting them. That's when I knew. We weren't the abandoned anymore. We were the threat, the rising power, the wild card the galaxy had no strategy for, and I did something I hadn't done in years. I smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was just the beginning. I called a summit, not with New Geneva, not with the ghosts of old Earth leadership. I called it with the 7 core cities, Grey Point, Iron Reach, Black Harbor, Salt Spire, Vantacor, Nova Cauldron, and Dustgate. We called ourselves the Fractured Flame, the new human authority, forged from the scraps and steel of betrayal. At that summit we wrote our first declaration, not to request sovereignty, not to seek recognition, but to announce a new doctrine. Humanity answers to no throne but its own. We sent it to every major race, every Union archive, every trading station. We didn't ask if they understood. We just made sure they heard. A few responded. Most stayed quiet. But we weren't waiting for permission anymore. We were already building fleets, drilling moons, planting colonies on toxic rocks, just because we could survive where others wouldn't dare land. Everywhere the Union hesitated. We advanced because we didn't need anyone. And soon the stars themselves would learn what that really meant. We didn't launch a war. We launched a warning, not through speeches or declarations, through a fleet. 50 ships, crude, overpowered, patched with fire-hardened steel and stubborn engineering. No sleek curves, no chrome elegance like the Union. Ours looked like anger made into metal. They emerged from Earth's orbit one by one, not toward the Union's heart, but outward, to the stars. To show the galaxy what comes after survival. We didn't fly under any alien banner. We didn't borrow their codes or ask to dock at their stations. We created our own jump signatures, our own protocols, our own language of movement and defiance. And when we landed on Telveron 3, a mineral-rich world once claimed by the Union but abandoned after a Solari mining disaster, we didn't just settle it. We rewrote it, built furnaces in the soil, bunkers in the ice, factories in the ash-choked skies. No terraformers, no external support, just humans doing what humans always do when left alone in the dark. We adapted. Within months, Telveron 3 wasn't just alive, it was thriving. That's when the Union finally understood. We weren't taking territory. We were planting a message. Every new colony, every rebuilt ruin, every drill deep into frozen moons, it all screamed the same truth. You abandoned us. We outgrew you. Now you don't matter. The Union held an emergency assembly. They called us a destabilizing force, claimed our expansion was a threat to peace, said we were reckless, that we'd undo centuries of galactic cooperation. I watched their speech from the bridge of the Steel Howl, our lead ship in the new fleet. I didn't interrupt, didn't respond, didn't blink. When they were done, I opened a live feed. No speeches, no applause, just a camera facing me, and behind me, a window looking out at 10 newly lit human colonies across the void. I spoke 6 words. We survived without you. Remember that. Then I cut the feed. A week later, 2 more alien races, ones that never once lifted a finger during Earth's collapse, sent envoys requesting alliances. Not charity, not aid, alliances. They wanted to be on our side. Not because they believed in us, because now they were afraid not to. And still, we weren't done. We began construction on the Hollow Star, our first human-made deep space station. No alien design, no borrowed architecture, just steel, gravity, and grit. It orbited a dead world in a dead system, one we turned into a beacon. At its core was a simple wall, not for defense, for memory. Etched into it were the names of every city that died during the silence, every child lost in the hunger years, every soldier abandoned in oxygen-dead trenches, and above those names, carved deep into the steel, never again. Because that's the truth the galaxy never learned until it was too late. Humanity didn't evolve in comfort. We adapted in pain. And when every race turned its back, they didn't break us. They freed us. From the begging, from the diplomacy, from the illusion of unity. They freed us to become what we were always meant to be, alone and unstoppable. So let the stars watch, let the Union whisper and panic behind their polished doors. We're not coming back, we're moving forward, and we'll take the void on our own terms. No masters, no saviors, no gods, just us. Humanity, standing alone, and finally standing tall.